Good afternoon and welcome to this public Island Council meeting for this, the 29th day of August 2024. I would ask everyone to please stand for Saba. Thank you. You may be seated. Once again, welcome to our Island Council members, to those in the public, or Commissioner, those who may be listening at home. A few announcements as per agenda point number 1. Island Council member Mr. Rolando Wilson is absent with notice. He is ill, not feeling well. And also absent with notice is Commissioner Bruce Zegers, who is also ill. We now move on to another announcement. Commissioner Efton Hager has to leave the island today on the last flight, so he'll need to leave the meeting at 3:45. Point 2 of the agenda, approval of the agenda. In the public notice, you'll notice that agenda point 5, they have 5.1, 5.2, 5.2, and 5.3. So it's 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, and 5.4. For the rest, the agenda is good. Could we approve the agenda as presented?
One thing, program?
Yeah.
The registrar sent us an email yesterday that there will be no minutes or something from the last meeting.
That's the next point. So we'll talk about it next one. The rest is the agenda, right? Good. So the agenda is approved. Point 3 of the agenda, as Island Council lady, as also Peterson just said, the minutes. We cannot approve the minutes because the minutes were not ready, but they should be ready next week. So agenda point 3 we can't handle. We move on to agenda point number 4, oral question time, in accordance with Article 36 of the Rules of Procedure. We had received questions on various subjects from 3 of the 4 council members here present today. So the way how we'll deal with that is different subjects. So we go through the rules of procedure said the chairman shall determine the sequence in which the subjects submitted will be brought up for discussion during question time. So the different subjects we have are the commissioner who's present and myself, public health, monkeypox, health in general, hurricane response, the Makana Ferry, social support applications, education, remarks on the Executive Council's attitude towards written questions, plan for the renovation of the government administration building. Those are the different subjects. So what we'll do is, we'll go through the subject in the first round. We will ask the question, and then the commissioner and myself will answer the first round. Then in the second round, we'll follow up, including council members that he can ask questions based on those answers provided in the first round. Good. All right. Clear for everyone, so we proceed first with the subject of public health, and we will start with Island Council Lady, Ms. Elsa Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone present here today, and also those viewing via live stream. So my questions concerning public health is the monkeypox, and the main question here, of course, is monkeypox outbreak a concern for Saba? The World Health Organization declared monkeypox a public health emergency. Of course, it started in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and it has started spreading throughout multiple countries in Asia, and possible cases in Europe. So I believe it's essential that we address our island's preparedness. And I think COVID-19 has shown us that with these type of public health outbreaks, we should always be prepared and don't wait until it's too close to our shores. So my first question, of course, is the monkeypox outbreak a concern for Saba? What surveillance systems are in place to detect potential mpox cases on Saba? Has Saba developed a specific contingency plan for mpox, just as we had to develop for COVID-19, for example? What resources, such as medical supplies and isolation facilities, if necessary, are prepared for a potential mpox outbreak on the island? In line with this, how prepared is our medical infrastructure, including the training of healthcare professionals to manage possible outbreaks? And how is the public being informed about mpox symptoms, transmission, and also prevention to prevent misinformation and panic in the community, as I constantly see information about this on social media outlets? So these are my questions concerning public health.
Thank you, Island Council Lady Ms. Elsa Peterson. Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hager.
Good afternoon to council members and also the viewing public. The first question is the monkeypox outbreak a concern for Saba? Of course, it's a concern for the island because it was declared a public health emergency of international concern by WHO. Although at this moment, all the public health organizations in our region consider the risk of monkeypox in the Caribbean low to moderate. The current outbreak is mainly affecting African countries. I do believe that it's essential for us to address our island and make sure that we are prepared in the event of an outbreak, and also have strategies put in place. The other question you asked was what surveillance systems are in place to detect potential monkeypox cases in Saba. What is in place at the moment is syndromic surveillance. So, and this is at Saba Cares. So, suspected cases will be given the appropriate and available care at Saba Cares. So that's like when a person walks in there and they do testing and there are symptoms like fever or whatever related symptoms related to monkeypox, then that really will automatically start what they have in place called syndromic surveillance. So the individual will be isolated either at the hospital or at home. The next question was, has Saba developed a specific contingency plan for monkeypox? Apparently there was a plan in place since 2002. And as of last week, preparations were made to update the plans that were put in place from back then. Right now, from data received, the outbreak is more or less similar to the outbreak that was in 2022. As more information becomes available, it will be shared with council. What resources, such as medical supplies and isolation facilities, if necessary, are prepared for a potential monkeypox case or outbreak on island? Our medical infrastructure is prepared for such cases. We are receiving some, if I can remember, 20 vaccines that are going to be on the island shortly. But that's just from the vaccine standpoint. But there's also the collaboration with public health and also Saba Cares. So, a place of isolation would be at Saba Cares. And the other question is, in line with this, how prepared is our medical infrastructure, including the training of healthcare professionals, to manage possible monkeypox cases? Most cases need a standard medical management that doesn't require a specific training of healthcare professionals. So, in other words, we do have trained professionals on the island place, if there is our first. And the other question is, how is the public being informed about monkeypox symptoms, transmissions, and prevention to prevent misinformation and panic in the community? This will be done via the public health social media platform, and also via OLS platform, and also tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, it will be done. So there will be a communication will be going out to the public. This 2-page document.
That concludes the first round with Commissioner Hager answering questions. I think also Lady Ms. Peterson, do you have any follow-up questions based on the answers provided?
No, not at this time.
Any other council members have questions based on the answers provided on that subject? Okay, good. So we move now to the next subject. Hurricane response, Island Council member Mr. Peter Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First question in regards to the hurricane response, and that is recently we had passive drops on UNESCO. And there were some issues, you can see Facebook and social media regarding infrastructure. And in Riverside in particular, there was a road, the Agents Road. There's a road there, you see Saba. As soon as you get into Riverside, you're heading up to Riverside. And they were higher than normal water levels. So if you see videos or pictures in that area, you see that there was basically some flooding in that area. And that impacted some homes and businesses in that area. And what it looked like, there were some drains recently installed, and those drains weren't, flow rate of the drains were impacted because they quickly get covered by the leaves and sediment that comes along with the water flow. And this also occurred in May of this year when there were heavy rains as well. And it's good since then until now, the passage of the storm, nothing has been done. And as we are in the peak of the hurricane season, of course, persons in that area are very concerned about what would happen if another heavy rain event occurs. We all, because in May there was no hurricane, it was just heavy rains, and we can get heavy rains anytime now because we are clearly in the rainy season. There are a lot of tropical waves coming our way. So I'd like to know if the Executive Council has done anything to address this particular issue. If not, are there plans to address the issue? And if yes, what are the plans? Another concern that arose ahead of the passage of the storm was whether or not, again, social media, some people were talking about whether or not their garbage was picked up. And I know from years ago being in the, the disaster committee, normally ahead of the storm, public works would go out and would pick up the garbage and waste and then take it to the dump so that it wouldn't become flying debris during passage of the storm. And what didn't happen this time, I'm not sure why, but there were concerns in the community about it not being done. So I'm curious to know if there was a particular reason that this wasn't done, and also will the council address it ahead of the passage of future storms. Hopefully we don't have any storms this year. But also in line with the increased rainfall, it looks beautiful, nice and green, but that also means there's growth in the height of trees along the roadside. And of course that creates a bit of more debris during passage of storm. And years ago, they would do some clipping to the trees ahead of the hurricane season, sometimes during the middle of the season, ahead of the peak of the season, and I also see that has not been the case this season. Does the council have a plan to address this? So in other words, does the council plan to trim trees as we're heading into the peak of the hurricane season, so to minimize debris during passage of the storm? And my next question is more in line with homes. It's very expensive to maintain a home here, and a lot of people don't have the resources to repair particularly their roofs because it's expensive to repair your roof, and also the labor even to repair it is quite costly. So sometimes people put off repairs to their homes so that, hopefully not hoping that nothing will happen. And what occurred during the passage of the tropical storm Ernesto is that a lot of people realized that their homes weren't ready for the passage of even a tropical storm. So you can imagine what would happen when we have an even stronger storm passing the island, is that we have the loss of roofs. I've said this before in other council meetings that I think it's important to have some sort of scheme in place to help those who need assistance when there is a storm. And my question is, has the Executive Council made any progress with establishing such a scheme so that we can support those who need assistance with their roofs, but also shutters and so on, reinforcing their doors so that they can stay safe, because we also discourage people from going into shelters during a storm so that they can stay safe in their home with their families with passage of the storm. Those are my questions in regards.
Thank you, Island Council Member Mr. Peter Charles. I'll stay here and listen. As you rightly mentioned, there was an issue in the windward side on the E.A. Johnson Road with the water levels due to a drain being blocked. Public Works in coordination with the fire department, they, at the time during the storm, immediately addressed the issue by removing the grills from one of the drains. And this helped the water to drain out faster, but that is not a permanent solution. The Waste Management and Sanitation Department and Public Works, they regularly clean and inspect the drains, but this is something that has to be done more proactively now to prevent clogging and subsequent flooding during extreme weather conditions. The departments will continue to do this, but nonetheless, this cannot guarantee flooding in all parts during heavy weather conditions. During the evaluation by the crisis organization regarding Tropical Storm Ernesto, it was determined that Public Works would investigate and try to determine to improve the drains in the windward side and make an inventory in other parts as well. Public Works Department and Spatial Planning Department together determined that one of the drains in a series of drains is not deep enough to collect water to flow to other drains. The pipe in one drain is also smaller, so this is something that has to be resolved. In addition, the fire department committed to investigate acquiring smaller pumps that can be used for more shallow water. Their current pumps are heavy duty and to help with some of the floods we experience and expect to experience. Nonetheless, the heavy rainfall that came down during Tropical Storm Ernesto also lets us know that owners of business places and homes that are prone to flooding are advised to consider the use of sandbags to protect their property. The next question you asked was about the garbage. Extra garbage collection runs did take place, but nonetheless, we do have a situation where persons put out garbage at the last moment, but persons also need to be responsible for their garbage bins and they going down the road or whatever. So we reiterate the importance of them securing their garbage bins. The third point you made was about the trees and such. Yes, during our Tropical Storm Ernesto, debris and tree branches came down, and they can come down during a storm, and this can also cause a problem what you had about the drains becoming clogged or other risks. Efforts were made to mitigate the risk by taking care of loose lying debris, by calling on the public and contractors to clean their yards and building sites. Since the beginning of the year, the sanitation department has also been pruning trees and branches identified as hazard along the road. The evaluation by the crisis organization regarding Tropical Storm Ernesto determined that waste management and sanitation will give more attention to trim trees near roads before storms and hurricanes, even though efforts were already made in that regard. In collaboration with the fire department and the waste management and sanitation department, an island-wide survey was carried out to identify which trees still need to be cut and prove priority across the island. So that's about the trees. And then the next point you made, the third point regarding houses, and several persons who could be impacted by storm or the shutters that we may need help. First of all, we want to stress the responsibility of homeowners themselves to prepare their homes and structures against the impacts associated with storms and hurricanes. And for persons that need financial assistance in this, the public entity has recently received funding through the Vault Haste Vestings Fund for a renovation grant to Saba. The renovation grant Saba is a fund to support those in need to improve their homes, to create a healthy living environment, and to ensure their safety during extreme weather events. The Executive Council aims to improve 20 homes in 4 years with an average investment of $15,000 per home. For the remainder of this hurricane season, the focus will be on improving urgent cases already known to the public entity. From the 2025, the Saba renovation grant will be opened up for applications. More details on the eligibility and application process will be made later this year. The evaluation by the crisis organization determined that certain short-term and mid-term solutions may be required to address the safety of some structures for the inhabitants and their neighbors. The possibilities for this are currently being explored. And that was done prior to Ernesto. We're busy with that fund that just came in, the renovation grant, to address those issues with those homes. That concludes the first round. The second round is follow-up questions based on the answers provided by the council member, Mr. Jones.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I want to thank you for the clear responses to the questions. And in regards to the drains, in particular, I had a discussion with one of the homeowners in that area, and I asked specifically, had they experienced this before other than in May? And he said no, that hadn't happened since Hurricane Lenny, and that was back in, I believe, 99. So, and there had been significant rainfall events in the period since then. And so, when you say, oh, you really relax, you see that the drains have been changed there recently, and I think it's actually the flow rate, so the drains are not, and they're also much more closer together. So it's like having almost like a sieve, so it becomes blocked quite easily. And then I also got the opportunity to look online and see what really manhole covers look like. And that isn't really, those grates, they aren't really for manholes. They're just for minor drainage in certain areas. So I think they're not equipped to handle the drainage in that area. So I think it really needs to be addressed. Because, yeah, we can tell owners, of course, and they should secure their homes. But if they're not used to that because they've had rainfall events before and not seen that type of impact, then they also don't realize that they should repair. So I think something we really need to look at what changes we've made and whether those changes have made things worse. And in regards to the roofing, the structures and securing them, I think we've also had a discussion about climate change and how climate change is going to have an effect making storms stronger. And while I appreciate that there is the support from both investing funds, I think that actually more needs to be done. You know, and I've said this before, that we are at the front lines of climate change. We're talking in Bonaire, they talk about sea level rise, which is, maybe begins in 2040 or 2050. But here we are today already experiencing these stronger climatic events. And we need to, I think there needs to be more resources made available to strengthen structures today. And while, if you say 20 homes in 4 years, how many storms we may encounter at that time. And the resources that we bring to bear should be commensurate with the risk that the population is facing. And that to me doesn't seem like it's in line with that. So I do hope that we're also looking for additional resources so that more homeowners can be assisted. I'm not trying to absolve homeowners from their responsibility to secure their own homes. But I think given the reality of climate change and the frequency of storms, when you talk to older persons, they'll tell you that they went 40, 50 years before seeing a strong storm like what we are seeing in these times. In addition to that, homeowners insurance is so expensive that most people can't afford it. So unless you have a mortgage, most people don't have homeowner insurance. And a lot of people are older, they have fixed incomes, and they're unable to afford insurance. So we also need to support those persons. So I do hope that while I appreciate the initiative that is being taken right now, I do hope that there is a more structured program that takes into account specifically climate change and the situation of Saba, so that we can support homeowners and make sure that they're safe and home with their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Item Councilmember Charles. Based on the answers provided, do other council members have questions on that? Item Councilmember.
Just a clarification question. You said the renovation grant would be for 2025?
We would start this year. We have a list of some priorities for this year, so we would already start this year with a few roofs that need immediate changing, so those are being worked on now. So the idea was also to get that funding as soon as possible. The funds are earmarked for next year, already started this year on those immediate needs.
There was another question on the renovation grant. Was that I was going to flag it later on, but since you mentioned it, I was just wondering if, well, I haven't seen it communicated to the public, so if...
Now this is hot off the press card, so this is just something that just came in, so this was also to be communicated with the Ida Council, that would, I can say would agree with the public as well. But then we'll also have to probably disappoint some other people because we do have the list of persons who need that immediate help now. So that's why I said the 4 or 5 that need that assistance we had already put in. Because as you remember as council members, we used to have a small pot from the social domain. But this project request for funds was put in by the Ministry of Housing, or Visit CAD. But that's how we got this pot of money. And then for the rest of what Island Councilmember Charles said, that would also be part of that whole housing scheme about, because of climate change and such. So we got this money, the 150,000, and then the discussion about the impact of climate change is part of the broader discussion from the community, from the Department of Spatial Planning, and that would be part of that, and the whole houses and all that would be part of that. And then, as we know, we spoke about spatial development and such. That, when you all provide your input, that would be part of that overall program as well. Because it does have an effect on us. And,
Can I just add, the reason why I asked is because this is in the big sale decision is from the 16th of July, which should be public. So if anybody else saw it, it'll be already in August. So
I just got the same question that Elsa posed, but for me the criteria is important because when there's funds available for community, sometimes the criteria is set so high that person they don't feel like filling in those documents, so they're actually forgotten. So I think we just should have a good criteria set choosing who gets in that regard.
Good, and the criteria and such will be shared with the council.
Yeah.
Okay. Good, that concludes the topic of hurricane response. We now move on to the McKenna Ferry.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, once again. And so, recently I know the Canada announced that they changed their schedule traveling to the islands. And then they would leave some stations later. And I understand that one of the reasons for those changes was so that persons could, on station, could clear immigration on station before the boat leaves to come to Saba, and then persons on Saba who are cleared immigration could just board before getting on the boat, and then the boat would immediately be able to go to Simon, so it's sort of expediting the traveling process. Recently when I was at Fort Bay in the morning, I was quite surprised to see that even though that decision had been made, that people from stations still had to come to Saba, clear immigration, so get off the boat, clear immigration, and then get back on the boat, and then finally saving passengers could board once again, or not once again, they could finally board and then get on their way. And clearly people were a little upset and frustrated because the idea that this would continue to take place had been put, the idea that it would stop had been put in people's minds. And so as it continues, it seems like we say one thing and then nothing happens. And then I understand because immigration authorities and stations say one thing, they do another, and then Saba being all faithful and reliable immigration authorities here, they are going to step up to the plate. I think it creates a lot of unnecessary tension with the passengers, and it creates just a bad feeling about, the service that we're trying to provide, the connectivity that we're trying to improve. So I'm just curious whether or not the Executive Council is aware of this, and whether or not they have informed the authorities in Bonaire and in the Netherlands, the immigration authorities in Bonaire and in the Netherlands about this situation, and whether you've had, if they sort of said it is something they're willing to address, and if so, how soon do you think they're going to be willing to address it?
Okay. Thank you, Island Councilmember Mr. Charles. As this touches on public order, such I consider this. Since the start of the Makana project, immigration issues have been part of the discussion with the Ministry of Justice and Security and the relevant authorities in the Dutch Caribbean. The main reason that we had was the lack of capacity of the Mauritius and the customs staff to deal with the additional passenger flow. Continuous conversations were and are still being held regarding capacity controls and improving the situation for the employees of the immigration, customs, harbour, as well as for the passengers. In the summer of last year, an evaluation of the Makana project was conducted for the first subsidy of the Ministry of Basic Care. In this evaluation, the public entity Saba clearly indicated to both the Ministry of Justice and Safety and other relevant authorities that the current situation whereby station passengers pass immigration and customs on Saba rather than at their port of arrival or departure on station is not ideal and should not continue. The intention for the change in the schedule was twofold. First was to allow on some days that Mauritius and customs on station would be able to clear passengers within their opening hours. The second issue was regarding on St. Martin to deconflict the arrivals of the Makana and the other boats at the Bobby's Marina. The old schedule sometimes resulted in the Makana passengers being stuck on the vessel at Bobby's Marina until after the other boats finished clearing on St. Martin. This delay often caused the passengers to enter the island of St. Martin an hour later, and departing from Statia even later would limit the time passengers would have on St. Martin for a return day trip to St. Martin. Currently, what we continue to do is that we continue to discuss this with the immigration officials, the Mauritius, and while their capacity is still limited, the public entity has been informed that the Mauritius they are exploring to what extent they can start clearing Statia passengers on Statia on some days in part or in whole. This could also potentially unburden the limited Mauritius capacity on Saba, as well as on Statia if the correct balance is found. So this is something that even last weekend, last Friday afternoon late and Saturday, the commander of the Royal Mauritius was on the island, and while she was here, this was brought up again. And what continues to happen is, although on the 6 islands there are on paper sufficient Mauritius that could be divided, the priority lies with the border control of the countries. And Bonaire, Statia, and Saba, there was a separate request that went into the Ministry of Finance to have more Mauritius on Bonaire, Statia, and Saba, and that has not been honored as yet. So that request is still there at the Ministry of Finance to provide more funding for the border control Mauritius on Saba and Statia. One of the things we explored in the triangle, so the triangle is myself as governor, the police, the public prosecutor, and the Mauritius are also present, that we would put in a request for assistance. So base stunts for Zoom is called a nudge, so a request for assistance. So we verbally informed the different partners that this could happen, and what we're hoping, should it reach that, is that would create hopefully the political will in the European part of the Netherlands at the second chamber as such, that they would also start asking questions. Why did Saba put in this request? So capacity remains a problem. You know, they have new recruits starting. But for Bonaire, Saba Station remains a problem, whereas, you know, you would question, but yeah, I see Marshals on St. Martin at the airport is walking around why they can't be sent here. But formally they are under that different package and they're not allowed to be transferred to Saba Station Bonaire. So that's where it stands right now, and we continue to have and continue to discuss this with the authorities also, because now, as we all know, the Makana also leaves station later, and that was one of the things, because the opening hours of the port is 7 a.m. So we would also hope that on station that they would show up at 7 a.m. to clear their passengers there, instead of having to clear them here when we open there. So that concludes my answer. If there's follow-up questions or let's begin with you.
I guess maybe my first question would be, because, you know, if you look at opening hours in regards to the airport and harbor, for me, if you go to Bonaire, there's always staff on hand at the airport. I'm sure there's always staff on hand at the harbor. So it seems to be sort of well stocked, so to speak. And is it not a case of, you know, all the resources being channeled towards Bonaire because of its larger population, larger size, and so on, at the expense of Saba Station? Because if our opening hours and now the schedule kind of falls in line with opening hours, if our opening hours are now in line with the law and legislation, why can we not then receive the service that is expected during opening hours? Because if, you know, the boat arrived there, I think it was after 8 or so. So if those persons had been cleared in station, they would have still been on time. But instead they had to spend another, I think it was 30 minutes on the harbor here, so that people could pay the time. Already, the time on St. Martin, if you're a day tripper, has been shortened, and that further shortens your time.
Yeah, I just had a concern about the, because of that, it actually lowers the level of security at numbers. So, is there anything being done in the short term to mitigate for possible undocumented persons entering the island?
But as we all know, that there are being, and this has been, it started in May. I think it started in May, and since then we addressed it. And that is the reason why that we in our triangle here on Saba want to submit that request for assistance, because I think in total it's been about 8 times that there haven't been any, there has been maybe one border control officer at the harbor. Because there's only been one, they just allow the passengers to walk in. So what you're saying is it could pose the issue of the risk, and that was brought up with the prosecutor. You know, we continue to say, why don't you just do those passengers on station, you know, when you come and such. And then like what you're saying,
Service.
yeah, the service. That has been brought up as well. But then they are very rigid in their labor conditions. You know, that they can only work so many hours, because, you know, here we try to look at the practical. I mean, we know what the old situation was, because we all were aware of that when we only had 3 persons that were doing a lot more, a lot different than now. But it seems that the current labor conditions inhibit them from working. You know, like, why do they start 6 a.m. till, you know, like have 2 shifts in a day or whatever? Because we know it's the Makana, we know it's the airplane. So we know, we have a good idea, it's not that it's cruise ships or whatever, so why can't that be more flexible? But in those talks with the Marshals, their labor conditions are very restricted, and we get them to budge and move that won't happen. But that's why they look at one person. But then we have also asked, why are you more in line with the left and right, the number of personnel for the border control, the police, and the customs will always remain limited. So then why are we more flexible in cooperating with each other? So if there's only one border control, then if it's a security issue, then why don't we coordinate the rosters, the timetables for the police in such a way? So that's also a suggestion which we have made, that the different services, they coordinate their scheduling. Because you kind of have an idea of who should be on shift, and then you could maybe reduce on one and increase on the other. So those are things that we continuously talk about in the triangle. And another thing that we have done from Saba is we haven't had it's called a Krotedring, and that is a one with the Attorney General to bring it to a higher level, because some of these things not only affect Saba Station, but it's also Bonaire. So then it would be the 3 island governors, the Chief Public Prosecutor, the Attorney General, the Chief of Police, the Maréchaussées, and then the customs are not part of this, but we have said that the customs need to be invited. The customs formally fall under the Ministry of Finance, but we've also asked, because they do have a role in the safety and security of our island to prevent certain criminal products and goods from being imported. So they have a role as well. But these are things that remain topic of discussion with the different services. Okay, moving along, the next topic we have next subject is social support applications.
Thank you once again, Mr. Chairman. On August 2nd, on social media, there was an announcement that the procedure for social support application changed as of January 1st, 2025. In the past, we've indicated that it is important to communicate more directly with vulnerable persons who might need these services. So I just saw the post, and then it was curious because I just happened to scroll across it, and it wasn't very clear what I just saw the pictures of. I think we had met the Meals on Wheels, and I think another service that's provided or that we have to apply to. And we have been critical in the past of how the RCN communicates when it comes to social services and how they share information with other persons. Because often, they don't. By the time they realize there's a change, it's often too late, and they're in immediate need of assistance. So I think it's important that we know who these people are, we reach out to them and proactively inform them.
The first question was, can the Executive Council explain the rationale behind this change for social support applications? Right? So as of January 2025, a new law will come into effect that would transfer the responsibility for social support to the public entity. Social support, as you know, is divided into 2 categories: general and tailor-made. Programs like the Life program and Meals on Wheels fall under tailor-made social support, and that is designed for specific target groups. And with the upcoming pilot, the applicants wishing to enroll in these services will need to apply to social domain. That's at Department of Community Development and Culture. This change aims to ensure that clients receive comprehensive support and address all their social needs. For general social support, the Department of Community Development will soon collaborate closely with community stakeholders to expand opportunities for residents to participate in social programs. These programs will not only foster community engagement but also enhance social well-being, enabling residents to maintain their independence and stay in their homes much longer. clients that are enrolled in the tailor-made program will not be affected by these changes. Their services will continue as usual. However, new clients will undergo an intake process with one of the social workers. And all applicants during the pilot phase, so there will be a pilot phase, will be approved. Once the law takes effect after January the 1st, 2025, new applicants must meet specific criteria related to their social situation, though it will not be income independent. Dependent. The primary purpose of this change is to implement client needs assessment, allowing for more in-depth conversations with clients to better understand their needs. Additionally, this shift aims to improve our working relationship with ZJCN, the organization responsible for financing tailor-made social support programs. This collaboration will streamline processes, enhance the development of the digital client system, which is something that is totally new also at the Department of Community Development that the social workers are busy working on. At the moment, in the past, everything was done with a file, so handwritten, but now it's done digital, so you can trace a client very quickly. And to provide a clearer understanding of the community's overall needs. And then the other question you had was, is there a more targeted communication plan to inform people who would be affected by this change so that they are aware of upcoming changes? The public entity is responsible for communicating this information to the public. As you're aware, the Department of Community Development has already shared one communication, which I think you saw, as you said, on August the 2nd. And this was also to also inform the public of the pilot program, so the beginning stage. So as mentioned, at this moment, everything remains the same for the current clients enrolled in the two programs. However, for the new clients, like I said recently, they will have to meet with the social workers to have an intake assessment. And just so that we know that the department does have a vast client base. So it's growing every week, you can say, more or less. Information is already directly shared with those clients that they have already registered at the department. And we will continue to provide more information through social media and other channels that the clients frequently use, and those who don't when we give the clients.
Great. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Hager. This other response.
I just have one question in regards to that. I will thank you very much for your update, and I think it's great because you mentioned that it's going to be provides an opportunity for more in-depth assessment need for the clients, which I think is important, and that we're having a conversation about what their needs will be and how we can better support them. So I want to applaud that initiative. But I have another question, and that's in regards to does the new intake process take into consideration, for instance, how long it will take for a response? Because we don't want that, I don't know how quickly requests are responded to, no, but I'm assuming fairly quickly. And I hope that, with a more in-depth needs assessment, that it also doesn't mean that the time from when someone sends in a request to the time that they receive it, that it's going to be a long time. Because again, as you mentioned, often these are people are waiting until they are urgent need of these services before they reach out to apply, and I don't hope that they won't be impacted because of bureaucracy. You know, we are often critical of the bureaucracy of the national government, and also always a bit scared to see us adopting that bureaucracy within public entity. We are intended to serve the public, and we should be very accessible, and we should have no threshold to providing services when people are in need.
Thank you, Councilmember Charles. Any other questions?
You mentioned in your brief explanation about it's growing every week. I'm a little bit, the question is this something that we need to be concerned about, seeing as this is like for the social part, and what percentages are we talking about? I understand, of course, you will probably have those figures with you right now, but it's, if possible, to let me know what the numbers are. Unless you have the figures.
No, I don't have this figure. But one more than getting back to answer Councilmember Charles' question. To know how long the process will take, the response time is practically immediate. And but after in January we have the JCN has 10 working days, so because ZJCN is also part of it. They have 10 working days to also give a response.
Respond that. Would that delay approval?
No, it won't.
It wouldn't delay approval. So it's just that they would sort of give sort of certify your current process.
Because if I remember from the meeting that we had, they did mention that they got up to 10 days to give back feedback, but it would never be reciprocal.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. That concludes that subject of social support. We now move on to the next subject, education. We have two council members who pose questions, either Councilmember Charles and either Councilmember Machi. So we'll get the questions first, and then Commissioner will answer, and then proceed. Either Councilmember Charles.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Once again. On July 17th, there was a statement from the Bishop of Williamstown, posted publicly, and that indicated that a group of experts were being convened by the diocese to assist in the current challenges being experienced at the elementary school. It's good to know that there's finally some communication from the diocese. A lot of people question, and rightly so, the involvement, the continued involvement of the diocese, who is so far from the island in education on Saba. And I understand, of course, that the school board for years is a Catholic school board, and the diocese has managed it. But at this point, you know, almost what they call a form of colonialism, that you have this school board being overseen from afar, while the reality is that the people on Saba are affected by the decisions. And clearly, because of the current issues, it isn't working. And I'm curious if the diocese is aware, you know, that the distance from the island limits its ability to understand and ultimately address the issues at the elementary school, and whether that executive council has met with the diocese, and whether or not they really understand the concerns of the community, how important it is to have a school that functions well on the island. And you know, I'm curious whether or not they are willing to relinquish their involvement in the school board.
Good. Thank you, Councilmember Charles. Also, Lady Ms. Matthew, your education group. These are education. Yeah. Just do all the education and then.
Yeah. Okay, so I have some questions to the entire Executive Council regarding education, because it feels as if only when the Island Council asks questions regarding education then we get an update, or at least the community gets an update. So then my question is, are you contented with the current situation of education at Saba? Are you confident that you are working in the best interest of the students and parents on Saba? Do you have an educational vision that you plan on executing during your tenure as Commissioner of Education? And what are the core tasks of the Policy Advisor for Education? In the previous Island Council meeting, Island Council Member Wilson asked about the Sacred Heart School Inspectorate report. At the time, the Commissioner of Education had not seen the report. Since then, on August 5th, the Inspectorate published a report on the school board, stating that the board has no sound policy in place, cannot ensure the continuity of education, and cannot provide any guarantee for the quality of education offered. And there is also no sound management in place. So what are your thoughts on these two reports, if you have seen them right now? Then, on the new building at the Sacred Heart School. In October 2023, the Sacred Heart School received the keys to the new building, which subsequently housed the kindergarten, grade 6, IT, and management. This building is the direct responsibility of the public entity Saba, specifically the Policy Advisor for Education and Commissioner of Education. Now, August 2024, less than 1 year later, the contractor responsible for the construction of the building is dealing with repairs to the structure, namely leaks and other structural weaknesses. These flaws have existed since the inception of students and classes being housed in the building from last year, with all but one room in the building not experiencing leaks. So my questions are, who is the liaison or project leader from the public entity when it comes to the project management for this building? Please explain how the communication between the public entity and the contractor was coordinated. For example, how frequently? Are you confident that the contractor was significantly informed about the building plans and expectations? What would you determine to cause the delays and setbacks for this project? Was the safety of our students and teachers considered since they were housed in a building that was seemingly not up to the standard? And what was the contingency or safety plan? Has this building passed an inspection before handing over the keys? And by whom, when, and what did this inspection process entail? What are the financial implications for the prolonged construction of this building? Are there any possible financial liabilities? Thank you.
Thank you, Island Council Lady Saskia Matthew. We now move to Commissioner Heidegger with the answers to the questions posed by the two council members.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the questions posed by Councilmember Charles in regards to involvement of diocese of staff and education, right? And the question is, have any discussions been held with the diocese about how its distance from the island limit, its ability to understand and ultimately address the issues at the elementary school? The Executive Council acknowledges the question that is raised by you, Mr. Giles, and we do share our concerns. Since 2022, the Council has been critically evaluating the role and position of the wisdom in the school governance. Although we previously attempted to merge the school boards, this effort was hindered by the strict statutes of the primary school board, leading to the suspension of the merger. as you know, the statutes from the primary school date back to 1986 or something, so it has never been updated ever since. Nevertheless, the BISM is aware of the public entities and the community desire for a unified board to oversee both schools. This has been communicated on multiple occasions, and it will remain a priority with our discussions with the BISM, especially in the light of the recent governance report released by the Inspectorate of Education, which I think that you all saw and had time to completely go through. And then your second question was, if so, does the Executive Council feel that the diocese understands the concerns of the community? The Executive Council has communicated the community's concern to the BISM, but they view the situation differently, primarily from a religious standpoint. And it's very unclear they really grasp the community's concern, you know. They remain firm in their commitment to maintaining a Catholic school. So, while it is indeed possible to preserve the school Catholic's identity, updates and improvements to the current statutes are necessary, and this has been discussed on different levels with Bishop Osaway, for example, for the board, because the statutes are really outdated. For instance, the requirements that board members must be Catholic and they must reside on Saba. This is something that needs to change, you know, especially at times when you need professional assistance in cases such as this, for example. And that restricts eligible candidates from actually applying. We hope to further persuade the BISM in an upcoming meeting, which probably will be held in a few weeks or so. I don't really know the correct time for it. Especially in the last report, or from the last inspector findings, let's put it like that. And yeah, there is an urgent need for change. And for the BISM to take a step back from this current role.
Question.
Okay. Questions to the Executive Council from Council Member Matthew. The first question is, are you contented with the current situation of education in Saba? Well, on behalf of the Executive Council, we express our deep concerns about the current state of the schools, especially considering the recent inspectorate reports. This is serious and cannot be ignored. As a public entity, we are committed to ensuring that our community, and particularly our youth, receive high quality education in a positive learning environment. To address these issues, we are working diligently with our education partners both on and off the island to act in the best interest of our students. Although we aim to have external support in place for the start of the new school year, which started this Monday now, it was not feasible. However, we will soon be ready to announce the plan we have developed and the actions that we'll take. The other question was Do you have an educational vision? No. So, these questions are actually for okay, so the other question we had was, because I think I answered two questions in one. Do you have an educational vision that you plan to execute during your tenure as Commissioner of Education? The education portfolio is overseen by a commissioner and is part of the Department of Community Development and Culture. The education vision, is to create a vibrant and inclusive educational environment on our island where every student, regardless of their background of learning needs, has the opportunity to thrive. With one primary and one secondary school serving our community, we are committed to promoting a supportive and engaging learning atmosphere that prepares our youth for a successful future. And then there was a question: what are the core tasks of the policy advisor for education? And the answer to that is the education portfolio is overseen by a commissioner, and it's part of the Department of Community Development and Culture. This includes a policy advisor who focuses on both education and culture, working with the Ministry of Postweg in the Netherlands. The policy advisor's responsibilities include advising on policy, drafting policies, leading projects, and collaborating with internal and external stakeholders. Additionally, a technical project manager has been recruited to further support the education and school housing master plan. And then the other question was regarding the inspector report. And I think this came out of, this question was written yesterday Commissioner Wilson. By the time when Commissioner Wilson did ask the question to me, the report was not made public at that time. The report was made public on, if I'm not mistaken, on July 15th. And I was asked this question on July the 12th, and that meeting I think it was. So at that time I hadn't actually seen it, it wasn't shared with my person. But anyhow, that was that report, and since then we have one that just came out this week. What are my thoughts on those two reports? The Executive Council, has serious concerns about the findings in these two reports and is deeply concerned about the path forward. In response, we have proactively sought support to address the issues at hand and implement the inspector's recommendations for improvement. While we face challenges such as limited capacity, expertise, and financial constraints, engaging the right experts is crucial to overcoming these obstacles and improving the situation. We are currently working behind the scenes to develop a comprehensive plan which will be shared with the Council, and that's the Island Council, and communicated to the public soon. We want to assure parents, students, and school staff that their needs are our top priority, and we are committed to working in their best interest to ensure a positive outcome. And the third question was about school building?
So the first, before you go into the buildings, let me add into the diocese and areas of everything. I think I had told at the last Island Council meeting, to add to it, the representative, the bishop is formally retired, the bishop of the 6 islands. Formally he's retired, although he's still on Curacao hanging on. So he's represented by his chancellor, a young priest from Curacao. He came to the island to explain what they were going to do. Then after the report was written, what Island Council Member Mr. Charles said, we all saw this letter posted in the newspaper or the news and such, what all they were going to do. We have not seen those things. Have they updated the executive council who or how they're going to do these things? So the executive council took the proactiveness and informed the Ministry of Education that we need boots on the ground, a person here to assist with the governance, to improve the governance of the school. And within our network, we found someone that's what Commissioner Hagan is referring to, a person who will be coming to the island in the next few weeks to assist the school board with the governance of the elementary school. But if you look formally at the statutes of the elementary school, they don't even live up to their what's written in their statutes, because you need at least 3 persons and you only have 2. So we inform them as well, they need to add persons to the board. But the thing is, in the statutes is also written that the bishop has to approve at least, the 3rd person would also have to be approved by the bishop. We have the statutes are written. So left and right, we all can agree these statutes are ancient and archaic and need to change. And a question which was posed, not now, but in a different setting, in the Presidium by Island Council Member Matthew, if X amount of parents asked to start a new school, could that be an option? This was also brought up by the Ministry of Education, because if you had to do a survey, and you did a public survey, I am sure that at least 50 parents would say we would agree for our child to go to a different school. All these things were brought up with the ministry prior to the report being published. We said, why don't you come up with options to resolve the board, or, for example, the statutes of Saba Education Foundation, which is the foundation which governs the secondary school. Those statutes are broad enough to have more than 1 school, so this was also mentioned there. So then why don't, for example, you open it that the teachers of the elementary school will then quit the elementary school board, they'll be hired by the other board, and then the same way the children will be deregistered from State Catholic under by Saba, and then be, so maybe we think too practical or too easy, but they have lawyers looking into this and they are very timid about such approach. They would like that all options are explored first with the wisdom of Curacao, that they would relinquish their governance of the school, and then we go from there. So that was why they asked, but this was in July, and then the summer came, the Ministry of Education, and then specifically the State Secretary asked, I would be willing to go to Curacao together with the representative from State Caribbean Netherlands to speak with the bishop in person. Instead of with a liaison, also speak with the bishop personally to explain the situation. In the meantime, this report from the inspection is public and anybody can read it, and we haven't heard from them, from the wisdom, but I do hope they will take the report, read it, and study it, and draw their own conclusions. But if that will happen, I'm not sure, but it would be nice if they would draw their own conclusions from that report, because obviously it's been very critical, like every said, a very damning report. So this is something that we hope they would see and we go from there. But as it pertains to what's happened over the summer, and a letter written by the bids down what they will be doing. We have not, as Executive Council, seen what steps they are taking. That's why Commissioner Heidegger and his staff have gone to these ends for those things. So that, to add into that section of the questions posed. Okay, now about the building.
So what's the question for you?
You want to round up this part first?
I don't know if
the
it's
building?
possible.
Well, let me do the,
Yeah.
because that was the first round, then we round up with it, and then the second, yeah.
Okay, there was some questions about the building, the new building. Block that was taken on the cover. So to answer the questions,
Good, yes. So the question is, who is the liaison
or project leader from public entity when it comes to the project management of this building? Please explain how the communication between the public entity and the contractor was coordinated, for example, how frequently. The public entity Saba is responsible for providing school housing on the island. Since 2010, the public entity has been developing a school housing master plan, with the initial priority being larger classrooms for kindergarten. The decision was to begin with the renovation and expansion of the Sacred Heart School. This project was initially managed by two departments, Community Development and Culture and the Planning Bureau, now known as Infrastructure and Spatial Development Department. At the start of the project, one of the departments faced staff shortages and necessitating the recruitment of external project support, and that was the Department of Spatial Development. By the time the project commenced, the plan was finalized, the tender process was completed, and a contractor was hired to execute the project. Close communication was maintained with the contractor and the project team through bi-weekly meetings, technical support sessions, and consultations with the building's users. The contractor was provided with detailed specifications during the tender process, but modifications were made during construction based on requests from end users and input from the project team. These changes, along with other factors such as material availability and delivery times, contributed to delays in completing the building. Has the building passed inspection? Is so by whom and who did the inspection process? The building was constructed to meet the best code standards, which was the primary reason for its demolition and reconstruction. The safety of students and staff was a top priority, and we can assure you that the building is up to standard, safe, and capable of withstanding a hurricane. The building has been inspected by engineers and the project team, and while some adjustments were required, they are currently being addressed. Some of the adjustments fell outside of the contractor's scope also, because apparently there was, like for example, I understood that there are leaks in the classroom. I have witnessed that firsthand, and those leaks come from air-conditioned ducts. And apparently the contractor that built the building was not the one that did the air conditioning, didn't install the air conditioning. So there was a back and front on who has to fix what and who has to fix what. So in other words, one contractor was responsible for one, the other. Another contractor is responsible for another. And the last question was, what are the financial implications for the prolonged construction of this building? Are there any possible financial liabilities? The project has remained within budget, and a maintenance plan has been established, dividing responsibility between the school and the public entity. The ministry allocates funds for maintenance through the school's lump sum, while the public entity is responsible for external and larger maintenance tasks.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Taylor. That concludes the first round, and then based on the answers provided, we now first round having Councilman Charles, Matthew, and then Charles.
Thank you, Commissioner Hyder, for those providing some clarity to questions posed in regards to the involvement of the diocese. And you know, I hear where you are reaching out and you're trying to express the nature of the problem, the urgency, seriousness, and I just hear a lot of, you know, that they are unwilling to let go of tradition. You know, it's always been a Catholic school, we want to maintain a Catholic school board, and while that is nice and good for them, the reality is that children of Saba are the ones that feel the impact. You know, and ultimately the community feels the impact. And I think that needs to be conveyed. You know, you have school buildings that are maintained by a public entity, oversight by the ministry, and then the governance by the BISDOM. And everybody, you know, can stay in their own corners, but the reality is we need to solve the problem. And that needs to be addressed. And by sitting down and putting together committees and whatever in Curacao, doesn't solve the problem on Saba. These experts, they don't live on Saba. They don't feel the problem here. The parents are saying, hey, we want a school where our children can learn, where they feel safe, where all the concerns that were addressed in the report, where solutions are being sought for. And it's not even unfortunate, it's just disappointing. It's really disappointing to hear that the school board, that the BISDOM is only concerned about its legacy and not being concerned with the realities of what the state of education is right now. And you know, I hear the governor saying that, you know, everybody wants to have this sort of timid approach because they're concerned, of course, because of court cases and all these legalities. But that doesn't solve the problems either. I think what we really need, and I think it's important, that something is done. That there's a solution, not, you know, 100 reports to say the problem that we already know exists. But a report that says these are the next 3 steps that need to be taken. You know, I think parents deserve to know what is going to happen at the school within the school year. You know, we attended this year the opening of the school year. It was nice and it's good that there was positive energy. Despite the circumstances that school closed with last year, both at the high school, both at the elementary school, but there's some positive energy moving forward. We need to maintain that and also find solutions. And make sure that the problems that exist today don't exist at the end of the school year. That there's a brighter light at the end of the tunnel. You know, so I do hope that, you know, maybe by the next time we meet, there's more clarity, that there's a plan in place. You know, we're not asking, I don't think anyone's asking for an elaborate plan. We're asking for, you know, the next steps. Next steps that are going to take us in the right direction. Because maintaining the current situation, the current governance, the current model under which school operates, clearly hasn't solved the problem. It's only created bigger problems. So I hope, you know, that in September, when there's another council meeting, and because I'm sure there will be questions about the state of education on the island, that there's much better clarity to how we're going to move forward.
Thank you, Councilmember Mr. Charles. Councilmember Mr. Matthew.
So just for clarity purposes, the Commissioner mentioned about the leakages being connected to the AC system in the building of the school, but there was also concerns about tiles falling off the walls and stuff like that. So, like I said, structural weaknesses. And this was at the same time while the kids were going to school, so the previous school year. So the question of, so actually, my question now would be, because I think you skipped that one, how was that communicated by the school when these things were happening during the school year, since the public entity is responsible for the buildings, because that's what we take the most responsibility for? And if the contractor had to go back in during the summer to fix these weaknesses or deficiencies, just to clarify, you're saying there was no other financial liabilities, it was just on budget.
What was the first question? The first question was...
So besides the leaking from the ACs, since that was the issue and with another contractor, but it was also structural weaknesses. So moldings coming down, tiles coming down, and this also the contractor had to deal with before school started last week. So I'm just asking if the school never communicated that with the project manager or your person because of safety concerns for the children and the teachers that were also using the building. But also if the contractor had to go back to fix these things, and just clarifying that you said there was no extra budget necessary because everything was in budget. So there was no financial liabilities. And then just for clarity, I asked for the executive council if you guys are content with the current situation of education, and it was a no, right?
No, it should be clear also that, the primary responsibility of the governance of the school is the school board. So we as executive council, we have also been proactive in reaching out to OCWA and all those. So obviously we are not, that's what we have taken those steps. So we are not lackadaisical or waiting to see what's the business going to do or whoever else what's going to do. We've even had to look for the monies to be able to fund this because, we want this person to be able to come to assist with the government. So obviously it's not what we see, and that's why we are doing these things.
So I just repeated the question because, I just want to, because a lot of people want to know. So it'd be good for them to know. So that's why I asked the question again. And then for clarity on the educational vision, this is something that we're going to prepare for SABA, educational vision.
Well, I did make some contact with one of my other colleagues on one of the other islands and asked them how they're doing it. And apparently they're going to prepare one. It's quite costly. Thousands of dollars. But on Monday they're going to contact me back and let me know how the process will work. But what they do have in place at the moment for education is what they call an education agenda. And this is something like a vision for the stakeholders from education. So, and like the chairman was saying, we're going to have boots on the ground soon. But things are still being finalized with individuals, but I have requested that when the individuals on the island that she meet with the island council, him or her meet with the island council, so they can explain what they are going to be doing. And then you could also give your input at the same time to this individual.
I did have these follow-up questions actually based on the written questions, but since we're speaking about education, I think I could pose those questions, especially seeing that you have to leave shortly. In regards to the representation on the school boards, I know you have to be Catholic and all of that criteria, but my question would be has it been explored that maybe asking someone from OCWA to appoint a local representative on the school board, for both schools actually, and this will ensure direct local insight, and then you can mandate on all levels, whether financial or operational, and you can just suggest a term of maybe 2 or 3 years with an evaluation periods in between to bridge the gap until, something is resolved. You did mention, Governor, that there is currently two people on the board and there's a need for a third. So my suggestion would be why don't that way also way is there, and we have local insight from on a local level. The executive council has a role to play in that. So that's my question. Has that consideration been explored? And then the role of the diocese. I think I don't think we should wait. I understand the approach of doing it nicely, but I think we should just take the Band-Aid off. And if we can incorporate it into the comprehensive school structure, so be it. It is a need because I think the report is clear for everyone, publicly on all levels. We have to do something, and we shouldn't wait. We've already waited too long. Councilman Charles already stressed that importance a little while ago. So I think we need to just do something about it right away. Yesterday, actually. That's my.
To answer that, elucidate more what I said previously. So for the third person on the elementary school board, we have suggested names to them, and then they have to agree with that, and then they also have to they have to send that also to the bishop to agree.
Right.
So we have suggested names, like give them a list of local persons, because they were saying also how difficult it is to find persons. And then the person who we have hired, who will come from to help with governance, has experience with governance of schools and revamping that in the European part of the Netherlands, so is aware of that. The thing about the bisdom or be it Catholic or Anglican or whatever over schools, in the European part of the Netherlands, they have also had issues with trying to dissolve that. So seemingly it's a problem that. So that's why I had suggested that to leave it go that other way, and the Ministry of OCA in the Netherlands, as let's do this first, and then we do it first. Obviously, the report from their ministry by the inspector of their ministry is also quite clear. So that is something, and then the state secretary is going to also send, address that with the board, the current board, and then go from there.
Just to, can I?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I just feel that OCA is not taking their responsibility seriously enough. So that's why I suggested that they actually it would be a joint venture between the island from the executive council and OCA to have someone be nominated and eventually placed on that board. I don't know if it's temporary or something. I think that would kill two birds with one stone. That's a possibility.
Okay, let me make a suggestion, since we are in a public island council meeting. And I would suggest that a letter is drafted based on before, something is drafted from the council. Okay, I realize next week members will be off island and you should address, but I would suggest that we draft a letter from the island council to the Ministry of Education. Put certain things in it. And then that would also bolster what the executive council is doing. So, you could also address your concerns as either council members, because, we've had questions posed, we've had, we're here discussing it right now. I would suggest that with the registrar, a letter is formulated to the Ministry of Education from the island council, and then the registrar, myself, and sign. Obviously, first it's going to be agreed upon by you, council, and then that would also help to strengthen the case, if you all would agree to that.
I have just one more question. I think it's in regards to communication between the different stakeholders, in particular, because of course we talk about governance, but in addition to the governance of the school, you have the management of the school. I'm just curious what the current state of communication is with management at the schools, because it's important that, when we were in the Netherlands and we spoke to, I think it was the mayor of Texas, and he was speaking about, how important education is as a tool for attracting talent, but also retaining talent on the island. And I think that's also the situation we find ourselves in on the island, on Saba. And, parents, of course, the primary responsibility is want to make sure that the children are well educated, and then of course, if someone's moving to the island, they will also want to ensure that there's a good education system. And if you want to stay on the island, there should be a good education system. And what the mayor there said is that he has regular communication with the directors of the schools, so that they can follow up when there are issues and they can relate concerns of the community. Because of course they are running the school daily, and they should be able to understand why the decisions they make and the impact it has, but also share what concerns are happening at school, what the government can address. Because ultimately, the outcomes of the school, which is the students' education, has an effect on the community. When you finish school after 16, 17, 18 years, you are the product of the education system, but you are now a member of the community, and we now have to see how we can integrate you in the community. And if that job hasn't been done well, we bear the burden, so to speak. And so the schools have also an obligation to just have regular contact with the government. So I'm also curious of what that looks like, and if they are aware that they should be sharing and communicating regularly with the public entity, the management, not the director.
Yeah, so like I said, when this individual comes, this will be communicated with her also, and we can get information. Because at the moment, little to no information is shared from the school to us, or the school board to us. And we are in close collaboration constantly with Postaway, and that's Bonaire and Postaway Netherlands, and that's how we get a lot of information on what's happening. And it's very unfortunate that it's set up like this. At the end of the day, like you said, we are the representatives on our island. We have to represent our people. It's our children that are going to school. They're the future. They're the ones that must have proper education.
I see it as a three-legged stool, and not just a bicycle. I think everybody needs to be. We need all three legs to stand together so that education can be firm on the island, so that it's stable. And right now it seems, it's a bicycle. It's a bicycle with only two wheels, and no one is pushing it, or no one is pedaling. And it's very concerning and I don't want to, because it's a very sensitive topic, I don't want to make any strong political statements, but it's very concerning to me if it's not clear to everybody involved that we have to work together. That'd be very concerning if it's not well understood.
Thank you. That rounds up the education subject. Commissioner Hagan needs to leave, and then we have the one about the renovation of the government building, which I will answer. So we will adjourn for 10 minutes. We will return at, let's return at 4 p.m. 4 p.m. we will adjourn. Okay, it's 4 p.m. We now resume the Island Council meeting. We continue with the agenda point number 4, oral question time. We have one more subject is the renovation of the government administration building. Island Council member Ms. Saskia Matthew.
Lately, there have been much talk about renting buildings for office space for certain government departments, which has not yet been communicated with Island Council. How long do we intend to rent office spaces? How long do we intend to rent offices to house civil servants? What is the plan for the renovation of the administration building? There have been multiple plans and timelines for renovating the administration building. What phase are we in now?
Thank you. Island Council member Ms. Matthew. The renovation building of the government building, but in general, lately, as we all know, we have had an increase of the number of civil servants. And how long do we intend to rent offices to house these? Well, only today, but we did send an information letter on the topic of renting additional office space for the public entity, and in that letter, it does have more information, but nonetheless, the rent agreements for the 2 additional office spaces, the former Saba Roads office and the ground floor of the RCN building, are for a period of 2 years. If no permanent solution for suitable housing of the entire organization has been found in the meantime, these periods may be extended. What are the plans for the renovation of the building? The Executive Council aims to carry out an extensive renovation and expansion of this administration building. This also relates to the revision of the wall vests and the number of Island Council members, commissioners, etc. that need to be accommodated in the future. A project plan and a design were developed in 2023. This includes the renovation of the administration building, the demolition of the archive building, the construction of a new office building at this location connected to the administration building. The 13 you posed, there have been multiple plans and timelines. What phase are we in now? Currently, the issue is no budget is available for the execution of the renovation and extension of the administration building. This means that the project is on hold until funding has been secured. The growth of our organization has resulted in a shortage of suitable workplaces. That's why the solution was found with the renting of the 2 office spaces. In addition, a plan is being developed to transform the former Satel building next door into office space for the public entity. In the next few months, necessary maintenance and small renovations will be carried out in the administration building. That concludes the first round. Second round is marching.
Question about the Satel building. Does that building belong to the local government?
There was been a lengthy back and forth about who is the rightful owner of the building, because it was part of the assets when the dissolvement of the Netherlands Antilles. I don't want to say for certain, but I do know that the project, the Spatial Development Department, they are busy with the lawyer, they are getting all the background, but what we do understand is that belongs to the public entity. That's why we want to do the renovations in order to house persons there as well.
And on the renting of the other 2 offices, said 2 years, or it could be extended depending on how the plans go. So the monies for the rentals is coming out of the whole budget, or coming from a special subsidy, or how does that work?
It's a specific question. I want to give you a specific answer. It's in the budget. Yeah. It's in our current budget. It's not part of the education.
moet ik even terugkomen.
Okay, we'll come back on that. I'll give you a specific answer for that question. Do other council members have questions on the housing?
Maybe related specifically to the housing, but I would like to reiterate the thing that the importance of having a proper audiovisual system here for the council meeting, because frequently when I meet people who would like to tune in or who are tuning into the meeting, they indicate that it's sometimes difficult for them to hear us and listen to what we're saying. And ultimately, the reason for these meetings is to get information that we can provide to the public. And this is a way to provide that in real time. And you can, of course, listen to it later if they so choose. So I do hope that they are making provisions, and there are provisions in the next budget, so that we can have a proper audiovisual system. You know, I said it and I say it again, you know, we hire all these consultants, and then in the Netherlands, where they stay in the Netherlands, and then you have 300 and something commentators where you have audiovisual systems, and then they tell you that they don't know what you're looking for. Whereas, you know, there's a limited amount of suppliers in the Netherlands, and all you have to do is ask them, hey, can you give me an example of a system that you provided before? We have systems that they provided on the ABC Islands, in St. Martin, and they tell you it's very difficult to understand what your needs are. So it's either you don't want to provide us with something, or you don't want to look. So I do hope that in the coming days, that in the coming months, that some provisions will be made to have an adequate system so that we can do our job appropriately.
Thank you for that, Councilman Charles. Correctly, that now concludes various subjects, correct? Right, we now move on to agenda point number 5, the incoming correspondence and announcements. So agenda point 5.1 is the Island Council incoming and correspondence list from July the 3rd until August 20, 2024. Yes. Okay. 5.2, the Executive Council decision list. Councilmember Machu.
Just wanted to flag 2 decision lists. One from July 9th, point 3.0.3, removal of metal waste, and at the renovation grant, but we already discussed that. And then the meeting from July 2nd, point 3.0.1, basic proposal new council Saba, and 3.0.5 of official recess.
Those are flagged by just making sure the register got this. Yeah, right. Either Councilmember Charles, you would like to flag as well?
That's correct. On June 27, 2024, 3.0.5, part-time vet assistance. July 16, 2024, 3.1.0, development and implementation, PEST mobile application. On July 23rd, 2024, additional storage location, Saba Splash. And then on that same date, 3.1.4, food security proposal.
Okay. The registrar has it. Okay, so those will be dealt with in the next central committee meeting. So that our decision list. 5.3, written questions to the Executive Council. Okay. Then 5.4, answers to written questions to the Executive Council. That's what you meant by not by anyone. So 5.4 is the one that if you,
I just had to on 5.4.
Okay, so
Yeah. So, so it is notable that to date, questions posed to the Executive Council by the Island Council are either not answered in a timely manner, answered with very little detail and relevant information, or deflected. I just wanted to reiterate that the Island Council represents the people of Saba. To have little or no regard for the Island Council means you have little or no regard to the community of Saba and for being accountable to your residents.
That concludes agenda point number 5. Agenda point number 6. Island Council Proposal 2024, number 5, the second quarter implementation report and second budget amendment. This was discussed and deliberated upon in the Central Committee meeting of Tuesday, 2 days ago. And the advice, the proposal then from the Central Committee was that it would be established without a roll call vote. So the proposal is to approve the second budget amendment. So this will be approved without a roll call vote. Agenda point number 7. Motions. We did receive a motion which was emailed to me by the registrar from Island Council member Mr. Julio Every. I didn't announce at the beginning, but a motion was sent to us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon again to everyone. During the Island Council meeting before last, I did present this motion, and I was advised by my colleagues, and I did retract it based on the advice to look into the monumental islands of Rodney, and I did so. And based on that, I decided to actually draft this motion once again. And the motion is in regards to the establishing a structured process for naming locations after individuals on Saba. And it goes on as follows. Considering the recent discussions on Saba regarding the naming of streets, buildings, monuments, and other landmarks after individuals, and recognizing the importance of preserving cultural heritage and honoring deserving individuals through a systematic and efficient process, noting that the current monument on the island, noting that the current monument in Islands Rodling, Saba 2010, which governs the preservation of monuments on the island, does not include provisions for naming locations after individuals. Resolves that establishing a naming criteria, the Executive Council shall develop clear criteria and policies for evaluating proposals to name streets, buildings, monuments, and other significant locations after individuals. This will ensure the preservation of Saban culture and history. The criteria shall be aligned with the principles outlined in the Monumental Islands Rodering Saba 2010, ensuring that any proposed names reflect the cultural, historical, and societal significance of the individual to the Saban community. Then the formation of a heritage committee. A heritage committee shall be formed in collaboration with the Heritage Foundation to oversee this process. And the committee will consist of members with expertise in history, cultural heritage, urban planning, and legal aspects of monument preservation as stipulated in the monument Islands Ordering. The committee will ensure transparency and accountability in the naming process and will be provided with the necessary budget to complete its tasks within a timeline that aligns with the budgetary cycle. The committee will also have authority to consult with the Monument Raad as defined in Article 3 of the Monument Islands Ordering to ensure that all proposals are in accordance with the cultural and historical preservation guidelines of the island. Incorporation into spatial planning. This structured naming process will be incorporated into the spatial planning and development framework of Saba, ensuring that all decisions regarding the naming of locations are consistent with the island's overall development and cultural preservation goals. The process shall be documented and included in the public records as per guidelines in Article 7 regarding the Register of Protected Monuments to maintain transparency and allow for public scrutiny and input. And this goes over to the order of the day.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Before I allow the council members to react on this, I would like to give an update, some background on the advice I have received on the motion presented. So obviously the purpose of this motion is to establish a structured process of naming locations after individuals, and as you said, there is an ordinance. So the process for naming of public spaces and objects is already established in three things: the island ordinance of the general rules for names, so it's called in Dutch the Eilandsverordening, welke de algemene regels bevat voor de naamgeving van de openbare ruimte en nummering van objects of the public entity Saba. The second one is the reglement of the commission of the names and numbering Saba, and also the decree of the committees. So the above mentioned ordinance and decrees contain general rules for naming public spaces and numbering objects on Saba. In summary, the council assigns names to distinguishable parts of the public space and, if necessary, to buildings for the entire island. This also includes the amendment and withdrawal of names. The council is authorized to establish further implementing regulations regarding the provisions of this regulation. The council is authorized to establish a committee to advise on the implementation of the provisions of this regulation. There is an advisory committee to the Executive Council, the public entity for street naming and house numbering. The committee provides solicited and unsolicited written advice to the Executive Council on the assignment of names to parts of the public space. The committee consists of a member of the Executive Council and 2 civil servants. But this is something obviously that has to be updated. And the chairman is also authorized to invite civil servants and other experts to attend meetings of the committee. So this was done in 2010, and actually the head of the fire department is listed in this as well.
The whole head.
Some rules on the naming, the rules of naming. Street names may not, in the current ordinance, street names may not exceed 24 positions. Street names may not be named after living persons, and names already in use should be used as much as possible. But the advice is to use the existing framework for naming and numbering, but the naming committee should be reappointed as some of the members are no longer working for the public entity. There should also be considered to invite more external experts to better reflect the diversity of our committee. So in addition, it should also be considered to establish more policy rules that give more detailed guidelines for the type of names to be given For example, names related to the sacred culture. Currently, most streets are named after local trees, fruits, and vegetables. And only a few places are named after persons. So therefore, I would like to commit to explore how the current policy could be further refined, particularly to give greater consideration to the aspect of cultural heritage. So therefore, my advice to the council would be to not support the motion, but then to make those changes to the current criteria and such. My advice to the council, then now I'll leave the council discuss and decide upon the motion as presented. I have Council Lady Ms. Melissa Peterson.
Good afternoon and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Firstly, I would like to thank you for taking what we advised you last time into consideration. So I'm happy that you did that. And I came here today to support your motion, of course, after doing my own review of the ordinance and so forth. But now given the advice of the governor, which I wish we had a little before, maybe we should think a little more and see how again you could maybe add these in to also strengthen your motion, and I will support it.
Highland Council Member Mr. Peter Charles.
I also want to, so I think it's a very good motion. I think it's also, the idea behind it is very much in line with what's necessary on the island. Like the colleague also mentioned, it's rather unfortunate that this advice wasn't already provided to us. And because I think we could really collaborate to create a motion, and I hope that, because I think it would be not in good keeping with the current legislation to pass this motion with giving the advice of the government. So I want to see how we can incorporate governor's advice with your motion so that we can finally bring it to passage. Because I really, I'm definitely much more supportive of it. I think it's important that there are names of Sabans that are prominent on the island. That we give some historical context to what we have on the island. I think a lot of people, they're losing touch with the past, and having names of prominent Sabans is a way to maintain that connection. So I really, really hope that we don't have to go through this again. Really hope we don't. So, but I also, we also have to take advice in because we are a legal body, so we have to take advice into consideration as well. So I think it also, when hearing the governor's advice, it also made me want to revisit, maybe what we should do is provide motion a certain time in advance, ask for advice, whatever advice is necessary, and then we can proceed based on that advice, so that these situations occur less often. But I also recognize it's a work in progress. Because, before we just showed up with a motion and then hope for passage or something, and now at least we're improving the process. So I hope that we can work on that for the next week.
Thank you, Councilmember Charles. And then Council Lady Ms. Matthew.
So of course, I'm in favor of this motion. I thought you actually took, like they said, the advice into consideration, and you read up on the different ordering. But just to add to also what they said about, this was the second time we here, and Councilmember Charles mentioned that, if the motion was in advance, technically it was since June. So it would be nice if we had that information sometime in between there.
Yeah.
We weren't present in July, so then we have some more time. And we are at the end of August, so yeah.
Okay, but sorry to interject. Well, I was not the. This is all in this together. I would suggest in the future, in general, for all these types of motions, is with the registrar and then with the registrar to give the necessary advice. Because like I said, when I receive it, then I send it on to within the organization. So then if you said it, so I will hold you to it too. You know, but you don't come with the last minute motions.
Yeah.
You know, whomever comes with a motion, that the advice is whatever the background is received from the organization, so then the registrar sits with the island secretary, and then we can make it as strong as possible. So I think that is the way forward, you know, because you want to have an effect, because with a motion, you know, you could also, it could be passed, and then the executive council could also say, just like what we see in other parts, the motion is just put aside. So it could be approved by the council, so like the secretary could, but then still the executives, the cabinet, they just put it aside. So you want to have a result, and what just everyone's achieved is clear for all of us, and that is what we need to do. So we do need to breathe new life into the ordinance and ensure that with the spatial development bureau that can be done. So that is part of that as well.
All right. Yeah, that's right. Along with a motion in my back pocket. No, it's clear to me, and Saka said it very nicely. It was presented in June, but the motion in itself, I am not seeing the reason why we can't pass the motion today, because the motion is actually calling for things that is not mentioned into the legislation. So passing the motion necessarily doesn't mean that it will be made into law, because the next process will then be, of course, consultation to actually amend the law. So I think passing it as it is right now, establishing the naming criteria, formation of the Heritage Committee, and even incorporating it into the spatial planning is something that can happen after the motion is passed. Because that's the voting, that's the base would then have to carry that part of. And we would then have to amend the legislation to reflect the updates within this, with this motion incorporated into what's already written. So I'm not really seeing the reason why. I mean, of course, it is an advice from the government, but I will still push that we should still go ahead and pass the motion as it is presented.
I'll put it up for a vote. So I'll begin, don't push it, I'll put it up for the voting. I'll begin with Island Council Member Ms.
4, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Island Council Member Ms. Matthew.
4.
Island Council Lady Ms. Peterson.
Mr. Chairman, so again, I came here today to support this motion from its current form. Of course, I also taken the advice into consideration, but now also listening to the argument of Mr. Everett. I also see where he's coming from, and if this motion could also help strengthen the advice that you've already given, then I go for it.
Thank you. Island Council Member Mr. Charles.
Yeah, I also think it's a very strong wish and idea you have behind the motion, and yes, it doesn't have to be perfect. So I would therefore vote in favor of the motion.
With that, we have 4 votes for, 0 votes against. The motion for establishing a structured process for naming locations after individuals is approved. We now move on to agenda point 8, closing. I thank you all for your presence and patience here today. A very fruitful meeting, and I look forward to seeing you all in September. God willing, have a good day further. This meeting is now closed.